Trainee nurses from Dunkwa-Onofen in the central region say they will not return to their destination unless government gives them a letter indicating when their allowances will be paid. The nurses slept over at the Ministry of Health yesterday in protest over their unpaid allowances. Michaela Anderson brings us up to speed on the latest on this issue. Michaela, good afternoon. What can you report now, Michaela?
As I speak to you now, 4 VIP buses arrived 30 minutes ago to pick up the nurses to their school. But you recall that earlier the nurses demanded that they get a formal document indicating the specific date on which their concerns would be addressed before they return back to their school. But that didn't happen. But they agreed to go to their school. And I spoke to some of them. They're saying they are not happy and they had not bathed since yesterday. But they are banking their hopes on the fact that the minister assured them that he'll meet them next week, Thursday. That's the leadership of the group. He's going to meet them so they could judge and see how they can resolve the issue.
So their decision to now agree and go back to their school was because of what the minister said, that he was going to meet them, or at least their leadership, on Thursday. Is that the case? Okay. My colleague Michaela Anderson bringing us up to speed on that particular issue there. We can now move on to some other stories. Well, we can do some other stories, particularly the Trades Union Congress. Okay, we're taking a break here. We'll be back shortly with some more. Well, our apologies for that particular hitch there. It was a technical problem. Now, moving on. The pinch of the fuel prices by the National Petroleum Authority has caused an angry stir between organized labor and the bulk oil distributors. The organized labor is accusing the bulk oil distributors of holding the nation to ransom by influencing the fuel prices. The National Petroleum Authority has slapped a 9% increase on all petroleum products as it argues debts have to be paid the BDCs to forestall fuel shortage in the country. The CEO of the National Petroleum Authority, Moses Asaga, was quick to add that Ghanaians are being hypocritical about the fuel price increase.
Ghanaians don't want to pay realistic prices for petroleum products. You would buy a $60,000 BMW. That is that price in Germany. How did you buy it in Ghana? When you say that he's receiving more salary than you, but you've been able to buy the facilities that they are having. Now you buy a $60,000 BMW, but you don't want to pay 6 gallons per liter for it.
How many people are able to buy the BMW you talk about?
But if you look on our...
You're looking at the majority of people.
Yes, so let me go to the majority of the people. The majority of the people in Ghana are living in rural, are living now in the cities. And if you look at the transportation and you go to do your analysis as you go, the number of private cars constitute about 60% to 70% of the total number of cars on our streets. And if you have been traveling, which you know that if you are in UK or in US, the kind of cars we use in Ghana, you can't believe this is Ghana.
So you think Ghanaians are being hypocritical with paying the increment?
Yes, I think when it comes to fuel, Ghanaians are being hypocritical.
But organized labor is livid that government has allowed a fuel increase at a time when businesses are reeling under pressure from the energy crisis. TUC Secretary General Kofi Asamoah is demanding that the owners of BDCs be published, as he alleges they are the ones forcing government to take what he describes as unacceptable fuel price increase.
Reasons given as the causes of the increase. What exactly is the cost is the cedi depreciation. And the cedi depreciation, who caused it? Who is managing the economy? So if you just go to say that pass it on in the midst of these difficulties and crying all over, I think it's not right. We have cause to suspect that the BDCs are taking everybody to ransom in this country. And we are asking that they publish the owners of all these BDCs. People in authority have some level of influences over those BDCs. And the BDCs are really dictating the pace, creating panic, just putting these problems on us overnight. But for the BDCs who are bringing fuel already refined, a consideration would have been given to store and other things to mitigate the problems that we have now. We find the whole increase around this time and the challenges we are going through unacceptable. It is really chiseling the face value of income. Cost of living is rising every day. Now it's worsening it completely. And I think it's important that we all note, and all politicians note, everybody note, that there's a limit to what people can contain.
Whoever it is that owns BDCs, I think we can't avoid the fact that they have to take money from banks in order to operate. And the banks have quite openly withheld letters of credit from them. So is it really the BDCs who are setting the agenda? Or is it not the simple fact that they must pay their debts, which causes them to also insist on their pound of flesh?
As far as our information is concerned, even at the level of the MPA, it's known that the BDCs are those calling the shots, and we need to be quite careful about that. The point you raised may be quite right, but the point generally is also that how come that when the thing came down, the contention was that they were indebted to the BDCs, they are paying. There is no openness in that kind of arrangement. And if we continue doing that, I mean, we are burdening ourselves.
In a sharp rebuttal, however, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, Senyo Hosi, tells Joy News they cannot be blamed for the MPA's decision. He tells Joy News that BDCs are not fleecing the nation and have nothing to hide.
Well, I think it's a total misinformation. BDCs are actually going to suffer under the current prices. They are going to be exposed to over 60 million cedi in additional liquidity loss, or in what they call it, in subsidy. There's no way where we are the reason for this. There's no place where we are going to get out of this to pay down the humongous debt we have. BDCs wake up every day to serve our nation. We see our nation as our responsibility. We fool the nation. For many private businesses anywhere in the world, it's time to close shop. You've seen what's happened in Nigeria. But upon all the debt we have, we continue to sacrifice to serve our nation. To be treated like this and to be addressed this way, sometimes not fair. I think it's a function of a lot of misunderstanding of the dynamics of our industry. And we'll be taking steps to educate both the media and the public and key stakeholders like the TUC and all, for them to really appreciate the dynamics of it. There's so much misinformation, and we just be a bit cautious how we malign our own Ghanaian business.
The TUC also wants the MPA to publish the names of the BDCs. Is the chamber ready to do this even before the MPA does it?
Just look straight, go to the MPA website. For most of the BDCs, you see the principals. There's nothing to hide. We are not a cartel. We can't even agree on trade issues. There's so much information there. We are not a secret organization. That's why anytime you call me, I speak. So we are open. Anything anybody wants to know, please feel free and ask.
So the Electricity Company of Ghana is going to be privatized, is it? Understanding on the level of private interest to be vested in the company varies. On one hand, we understand that the distribution arm is to be managed by a private company. That's the proposal, yet there's no concrete information on whether the bids for this management are open. On the other hand, managers of the Millennium Challenge Compact 2 say the company is to be released to private concession. Now, does that mean ECG is to be fully privatized? What do we really know about the terms of the multi-million-dollar deal that is meant to help lift Ghana out of its energy crisis? George Afe has more.
There are some who have argued that the problem with ECG is lack of capital. So if you're able to inject the required capital, or if government is able to pay all its debts owed ECG, maybe the problem would be over. It's about investing in the infrastructure and the equipment that they have. Some will also argue that it's about the whole operations of the electricity company, that people still see it as a state firm, and that the time has come for it to be run as a private entity. And if we do it that way, maybe the problems of ECG might be over, because when you engage some of the officials there, they are very fine, sharp engineers there who have what it takes to work in any of the companies out there, GE and all the rest. So depending on where you're coming from, you would argue that privatization might be the answer. Get government's hands out of ECG and they'll be able to manage things very, very well. So it's a difficult question to say that it's yes or no, but depending on where you're standing, you might argue for a total privatization, you might argue for an injection of capital, you might also argue for a management contract, you also argue that government should get out of ECG, and that is the problem.
So what's the timeline we are looking at now, finally, before you go?
If I understand from the Millennium Challenge Corporation is that most of these conditions should be met before the funds come in, then it means that we might see that possibly in the next quarter, the other quarter, before the first tranche could hit Ghana's account. And what we understand is that unlike other experience, this one is unique. Some of the projects might be carried out before the funds will come in. So you demonstrate with the certificates and all the rest that this and this and this has been done. Therefore, pay the money. So the money is not going to hit government's account and government will draw. We also understand that there is an independent firm that has been established that the funds will hit in Ghana and then government will draw. So very stringent measures being put in place to ensure these monies are used for what is intended to. And don't forget, it's a 5-year period. So if within 5 years we don't make available, we are unable to use all the $500 million, the rest to go to the U.S. government.
Wow. That's interesting anyway, but I hope this thing doesn't in any way mean we're going to pay much more for tariffs, does it?
Well, if government should get out and government should stop subsidizing, then it means that you might end up paying for that full cost, and that will be a fact.
Transport Minister Jifar Ativo is blaming internal wrangling and restrictive spending power of management of the Metromass Transit Company for their inability to repair broken down buses. The company has 330 buses out of operations due to the non-availability of spare parts. Addressing Parliament on the subject, the minister said investigations into procedural lapses identified are ongoing. My colleague Elton John Bobe joins me live from Parliament with more. So, Elton, what exactly does the minister mean by restrictive spending by management of Metromass Transit?
Well, according to Jifar Ativo, the managing director has a threshold for purchases pegged at 5,000 Ghana cedis, and that is contained in the Public Procurement Act 663 of 2003, which means that the managing director cannot spend beyond 5,000 Ghana cedis, and this, according to her, is woefully inadequate for the urgent purchases of spare parts when required, and the company is faced with spare parts inventory management. So until the managing director threshold is, adjusted upwards, this issue will continue to persist. But even beyond that, according to her, the ministry has, an arrangement in motion to ensure that they have spare parts available to fix the 330 buses that need urgent repair. Now, she said that government has reached an agreement with VDL Bus International of Holland. They are the manufacturers of the VDL buses to provide spare parts to rehabilitate the buses. Now, this is a credit facility about €1 million with a 60-day grace period for payment. And an order has already been placed with the manufacturer on the 8th of May 2015 for delivery by the middle of June. So when the spare parts are delivered, then they can fix the broken down buses. But when she was asked whether this financial agreement between government and VDL Bus International of Holland has received parliamentary blessing, she would not, give details on that, preferring to rather go back and then have a meeting with her, chief directors to look at this particular issue and to establish whether they require parliamentary approval before this agreement can be actualized. So these are some of the things that she's mentioned. Also, she's also mentioned, for instance, that there was an investigation conducted into the operations of the Metromass bus transit, and then some procedural lapses that were identified. Now, she told Parliament that that report is ready, but has been forwarded to the presidency for them to study before they can release the full details to the public. Okay.
Now, we are also told that Lands and Natural Resources Minister she's also been briefing Parliament on new measures adopted to address illegal mining. What has she been saying?
Barbara Sawasama, who stood in for the minister responsible for land, forestry, and natural resources, just mentioned 5 key interventions that government is adopting to ensure that they deal with the menace of illegal mining. And one of them has got to do what she is describing as blocking out areas for small-scale mining. Also, the establishment of a national security subcommittee on lands and natural resources. And this has already received the blessing of the minister and the national security coordinator. They are also undertaking sensitization and education. But key that Parliament may have to input into is the amendment to Act 703, that's the Mining and Minerals Act 703. And this is before Parliament, and it's expected to make sanctions more deterrent to people engaged in illegal mining activities. Now, this amendment, according to her, will ensure strict liability of offences committed under Act 703 and prescribe severe penalties for illegal mining of the landscape. And the court has also been empowered to confiscate equipment used in illegal mining activities as well as any minerals produced from such activity.
Thank you very much, Elton, for that update. Elton John Bobe reported live from Parliament. Now, the chairman of the Electoral Commission has directed that though continuous registration of voters is a facility under the law, the formal resumption of the registration must be put on hold pending a thorough discussion of the matter with the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, IPAC. A statement signed by Acting Director of Public Affairs of the Commission, Christian Osupari, urged all district officers of the Commission and the general public to take note of the directive and comply. You're watching News Today here on Joy News Multi TV. We're taking a quick break here. We'll be back with some more. Stay with us. Ghana has been ranked one of the dirtiest countries in the world. Our data from World Health Organization and UNICEF suggests Ghana is among the 5 worst performing countries in terms of water access, sanitation, and hygiene. Fifi Kumsin has more.
Country data compiled by the WHO and UNICEF Joint Monitoring Program, that's JMP, were used to calculate rates of change for each of the components. Now let's look at the index in general. We look at El Salvador, which is leading, Niger, Egypt, Maldives, and these are the best performing countries. Now Ghana is at the bottom. We have 115th. We are the 115th position. That's among the bottom 5. Now, when it comes to water access, it says that country rates of change, that is progression or regression, % per year in access to water were compared to the performance frontier. That's the best in class. That's the best country, the best performing country, to generate a country value for performance in improving water access. In this category, we see El Salvador again doing so well, Mali doing very well, Nepal, even Nigeria doing so well. But when it comes to Ghana, we are at the 130th position. That is also among the bottom 5. For the 2015 index, we use the gap in rural and urban coverage as our indicator of equity. When we look at this category also, Belarus did very well, Sierra Leone did very well, Liberia did very well, Niger did very well. But Ghana, again, is at the bottom, and I'm trying to look at Ghana. We did 111th. We are the 111th.
So technically speaking, we failed in virtually everything.
In everything. I mean, when you look at the index, when you look at the compilation of all these figures from water access to water equity, sanitation access, sanitation equity.
Now, I'm just trying to reconcile this with the fact that we have this National Sanitation Day thing going on and we are always making so much noise about it. Why is it that we are not achieving so much even with that implementation? I mean, it's a nationwide thing we are doing.
I think the National Sanitation Day has just been implemented, and the expectation is that we will be able to rid our streets of filth. It's just started. It's a process maybe. Let's see how it pans out. Maybe going forward, we'll be able to deal with this whole situation when it comes to sanitation, when it comes to water access. Because in this case, we are comparing how people have access to water in the rural areas to how people have access to water in the urban dwellings. So let's see how things pan out going forward. So maybe there'll be some improvement. These are the 2015 figures, and as we know, the National Sanitation Program has just started. Maybe going forward,
we've done a little over 6 months already.
Yes, but it's something that definitely the minister may have to be responding to going forward, because if we are having this kind of information about our country, then we must be very worried about it.
Indeed. Management of the Agricultural Development Bank is calling on government to expedite action on discussions towards the bank listing on the Ghana Stock Exchange. At a stakeholder consultative meeting with members of the National Farmers and Fishermen Award Winners Association, Managing Director of ADB, Stephen Poji, laments the bank is desperate for cash to help facilitate its operations.
Meeting with members of the National Farmers and Fishermen Award Winners Association is part of efforts by management of ADB to explain the need for the bank to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. The meeting comes on the back of government's directive to the bank to have a wider consultation with stakeholders before going public. Managing Director of ADB, Stephen Poji, entreated the farmers to support the move, explaining listing on the stock market will help the bank support Ghanaian farmers better.
As I speak to you today, we are the Agricultural Development Bank. We are supposed to focus on financing agriculture, but we are not in Nigeria. We are not in Agogo. We are not in Mampong. We are not in Konongo. This is our Agri Bank. In the northern region, until 2010, when we opened new branches, we had only 2 branches, and all of them were in Tamale. But we have since added branches in Walewale, Sabelugu, even another one in Kumasi, Kalada, in Tamale. We added Yendi, we added Bole, we added Wibe. In Upper East, we added Nabrungu. All things being equal, if we had capital, shouldn't we have a presence in every district? Shouldn't we? Because that is when we can then finance the rural economy and agriculture.
Stephen Poji is therefore calling on government to speed up the process of the bank and listing on the stock exchange.
So the Bank of Ghana has indicated that it is unable to continue being a shareholder of ADB, and therefore it needed a platform to be able to exit its ownership of the bank. The second reason is to dilute government shareholding in order to allow the bank to issue new shares in order to raise fresh capital to fund growth of the bank. This is because government is unable to give ADB capital.
Government owns 52% of the shareholding of ADB, with the remaining 48% held by the Financial Investment Trust on behalf of the Bank of Ghana. The Securities and Exchange Commission recently gave the bank the approval to go ahead and offer its shares to the public. The bank is expected to offload a little over 100 million shares to the public by the end of this month, with the hope to give out 75% of the bank and raise about 300 million Ghana cedis. The process is, however, currently on hold. Management of the Agricultural Development Bank says it will continue to engage stakeholders in order to continue with the process.
Meanwhile, government is set to convene an emergency meeting with workers of the bank to avert a strike. The workers yesterday announced their intention to boycott work over government's failure to dissolve the board and remove the managing director of the bank. The announcement was contained in a letter sent to the executive head of HR of the bank, signed by the Deputy General Secretary of UNICOF, John Amegashi. According to UNICOF, it's been forced to take the action because government has failed to act on its request to let the bank's MD, Stephen Poji, and the board step aside for an independent audit. President John Dramani Mahama has charged the ECOWAS Commission to seriously take up the issue of youth unemployment in the sub-region and deal with it. He said this during the 47th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of States and Government here in Accra. My colleague Beatrice Edu has some very current information on that particular. She joins us live over the phones now. So, Beatrice, tell us more about what President Mahama has been saying on this.
President John Mahama is concerned that every year a number of graduates are left frustrated with our jobs, and so he wants ECOWAS Commission to take up this challenge discuss it at its next meeting so that there will be enough ideas to tackle this issue head on. He wants the Commission to pay serious attention to this, of course, because of the role the youth plays in the development of each country. Let me also say that the President has also been talking about the progress made so far regarding the fight against the Ebola virus. He's also been talking about the Boko Haram issue. Specifically on the Ebola issue, he wants donor partners to continue to support these, especially the most 3 affected countries, so that they will be able to rebuild their structures and get back on their feet.
Okay, thank you very much for that particular Beatrice Edu over the time now for us to do some business right after this break. What went into this survey? Why is the IEA saying the situation has gotten worse for businesses in the country?
Well, I'm sure you know that this survey is not very different from what AGI's first quarter barometer report for 2015 said, that last year, as at November last year, business confidence people was about 98%. As at the first quarter of this year, dropped to 85%. That shows how much companies are really under the energy crisis and other economic situation that we're facing right now. So what it is that the IEA also conducted the survey, looked at the agri sector, looked at services, and looked at industry. And what it came up with was the fact that companies are really, really struggling. The cost of credit is high, the cost of borrowing is high, and then the exchange rate, the cedi depreciation and all that. And so it's been tough for businesses. And then they gave us some details. If you don't mind, let me read.
Exactly, I was about to ask of the specifics.
Well, you said the performance of firms interviewed has worsened in the last 6 months, largely due to the adverse business environment. And 53% of the non-financial sector firms interviewed indicated that their performance had deteriorated over the last 6 months, which is from November 2014 to about March. And so the situation is, and I'm sure you also know that the falling between January and now, lots of people have lost their jobs. Indeed. And this is due to the power crisis. Companies are folding up, and then we also have the fall in crude oil prices. I'm told it's around about $55 per barrel, which is not the best. And so we have people losing their jobs, the oil companies sacking their employees because they need to stay in business. And so when we went to the IEA survey report, we had their senior economist, research economist there, Dr. John Kwachi, and he proffered some solutions that could help. So let's take a listen to that.
All right, then let's take a listen to Dr. John Kwachi. Okay. All right, so I'm told that there's a bit of a challenge with that, but obviously Dr. Kwachi has professed some solutions. What are some of the solutions he proposed?
All right, you know, currently government is borrowing at 25% interest rate, and that's
the treasury bill rate, right?
And that is not good, because you see, with that, it means that interest rates will go high. And I'm sure you know that just last week, the monetary policy rate was increased by 100% base points. It was 21%, now it's 22%, which is not a very good picture, which means that if you are servicing loans, your interest rate is going to go high. If you are going to borrow, you're going to be paying much more on the loans you're going to be borrowing. And so it's not a very good picture. It's a very gloomy. So he was speaking about the fact that government must reduce its appetite for borrowing, and that will help.
Save the rest. Let's hear Dr. John Kwachi explain or profess some solutions to this problem.
We have to get fiscal discipline in place, and we believe that the IMF program is a start, although we didn't need to go to the IMF. But as my colleague said, it looks like in this country, when we are on our own, we can't discipline ourselves until we go to the Bretton Woods institutions that impose fiscal discipline on us. And then when we leave them, we go back to our old bad ways. So please take it from here that it is lack of fiscal discipline which is driving Bank of Ghana to do the things that we do. When we go to the IMF, it looks like it is then that they impose and insist on these limits. As we are speaking, starting from this year, under the program of the IMF, the lending limit from Bank of Ghana to government has been reduced to 5%. And this is being monitored on a monthly basis, okay? And from next year, it will be zero. No lending to government from next year. Look, when we begin to put all these blocks in place, you know, and all of us have a responsibility to make sure that it works. I'm telling you that if we put all these blocks in place, government borrowing will reduce, the deficit will reduce, government borrowing will reduce, we will roll back interest rates in this country. But that is if, and as I said, we all should make sure that these limits are obeyed. It's not only a few people, all of us should be very vigilant, especially going into the elections next year, because that's the bane of our public financial management. When we get to elections, then everything goes, haywire.
Well, that was Dr. John Kwachi, a senior research fellow with the Institute of Economic Affairs. Well, I still have Etonam Say right here with me. So, Etonam, finally, before we go, what else came up in this meeting? Well,
they engaged other stakeholders. Okay. AGI was there, okay. Association of Ghana Industries. We had Chamber of Commerce was also there, and we spoke to AGI, who are not very happy with the policy rate. And they're also not happy about the increment in fuel prices because, it's going to only add additional pressure to already suffering businesses, because they said that they use other products, but because of the energy crisis, most of them use fuel. They buy fuel to power their generators, and that is not helping. And so they said that they are willing to engage government, and they want government to help.
Okay, so they mentioned the policy rate and the fuel prices. So
and then the exchange rate, don't forget that.
So now it's going to be more difficult for them to get access to credit. Even if they get it, it's going to be at a higher cost. And when they do get this particular credit, they are supposed to use that to fuel their generators and, obviously operate.
And don't forget, the banks that we think will be happy about the high interest rate, they're also saying that they're going to have bad loans, because if the interest rate is high, I will not pay.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Etonam Say. As Etonam Say, my colleague right here joining you, she's with the business desk. Well, you had to give us a lot of business perspectives. Wow, that's it for business. We'll be back shortly with some more. Stay with us. President John Mahama has commissioned an 800-kilometer Eastern Corridor fiber optic broadband infrastructure project in Ho in the Volta region. The project, funded by the Danish government at a cost of 38 million euros, was undertaken by Alcatel-Lucent International of Denmark. The fiber network passes through over 20 districts, starting from Ho to Boko in the Upper East region.
President John Dramani Mahama has noted that the completion of the Eastern Corridor fiber optic broadband infrastructure project will help improve Ghana's GDP. He said that projects which will provide high-speed internet connectivity will improve economic activities in areas along the Eastern Corridor. He also said Ghana has seen a rapid increase in the use of ICT, making it one of the biggest broadbands in West Africa.
I wish to report that the Eastern Corridor fiber optic project has been completed. The overall optic fiber installation is over 800 kilometers. The fiber has also been extended to the University of Health and Allied Sciences. And this project will open up the Eastern Corridor to the information superhighway and offer not only teaching and learning opportunities, but also bring the digital economy closer to the people living in this area. And so today, the Eastern Corridor fiber optic is a reality, as I reported to Parliament. We have developments that are tangible, and there are developments that are intangible. Developments that are tangible are those that we see brick and mortar, and we see iron rods and everything, and we can touch it and say, yes, development has come to our hometown or to our region. But there are developments that we cannot touch because that cable is buried 1.2 meters in the ground and so we can't see it. And yet the effect and revolution that it will have on our lives is far more than any brick and mortar you can have. Because communications is driving the economy of the world today. And so if the government invests 38 million euro to open up an information and communication superhighway in an area, it is far more rewarding than any concrete iron rods or brick and mortar you can have.
The president has, however, assured the people of the Volta region that he will be coming back to commission several more projects which are at finishing stages. He added work on the Eastern Corridor Road project will be completed before the 2016 general elections. He also noted that government is working to resolve all issues relating to students' allowances.
The missing link is in the middle between the two. That is from the Pepe School to Kabik. And I wish to say that we asked Rolida. Rolida have finished the boat from a road. And so we asked Rolida to move their equipment to the middle portion and start work there immediately. I wish to assure you that the Eastern Corridor Road will be substantially complete before the D-Day in 2016. I'll be coming back for the commissioning of the new permanent campus of the University of Health and Allied Sciences. It is almost complete. We are now doing the road network, the road leading to the campus, and then doing the roads within the campus. And so as soon as that is completed, I will join you again and we will go and commission the campus for the university.
The president, however, admonished contractors working on the first batch of the Community Day senior high schools to speed up work. The Eastern Corridor Fiber Optic Broadband Infrastructure Project travels from Ho in the Volta region to Boku in the Upper West region.
Meanwhile, the Minister for Communication, Dr. Eduardo Maniboma, has asked chiefs to protect the fiber cables that travel through their communities. About 120 communities will benefit from the project, which travels about 800 kilometers from Ho to Boku.
Benefits will be enormous in the health sector, in the education sector, within the public service, tracking tax administration, registration of businesses, and all that. And so it is our hope that this investment, 38 million euros, will be protected by the communities that the fiber is going through. And we are very, very confident that through the chiefs, through the people, and through the works of the National IT Agency, we will be able to protect this investment. As you have always indicated, we must be able to allow such investments to repay for the loans that ensure that we were able to deploy them.
Well, time now for us to check out the very latest in the world of sports after this. Now, before we go, a member of the Ghana Paramount Stool who was vetting candidates for the Gamman chair has been stabbed. Patti Butchie is in critical condition in hospital following the attack on Saturday. Last week, the kingmaker of the Ghana Paramount Stool, Ni Tetekwesi II, appealed to President Mahama and the IGP to intervene in the continuous parading of some individuals as Gamman chair, in spite of a regional House of Chiefs ruling that declared the seat vacant. The victim, Joy News Gathers, was also a key witness in the settlement of the Ghana chieftaincy dispute. Sister of the suspect, Elizabeth Hammond, wants the law to take its course.
And you are brother to
Richard Nyama Hammond.
He's the one who is alleged to have stabbed someone here at Richard. What do you know about him? What's his record on his lifestyle?
Well, my brother is a wicked guy. Since he came from Libya, 15 years now, he's a wicked guy. Every day he's been threatening us, including my mother and the area members. And a wife, he's called Ayi. When he heard something, then you call a husband. My husband, come and see you. Somebody says this and this.
Then he's a wicked guy. What has he done?
Oh, she has been threatening people. She's a long guy.
Actually harmed or attacked anybody?
Yeah, she attacked her whole brother and my father.
How?
He took a motor key to hit her brother's this place. How do you call it? Yeah, and he ran away. And always he has been saying when he catch me or he see party, he will shoot her and run away. Every day she has been saying it. And he went to my family's house and go and tell them that when they catch me, he will shoot me and he will run away.
Has he got a weapon?
Yes, he got a weapon, plenty weapons. He got he got plenty weapons.
Well, let's do a recap of our top stories now. And trainee nurses from Dunkwao on a thing have refused to leave Blackstar Square until government gives them a letter to effect the payment of allowances. Trades Union Congress charges governments to reverse 9% increment in petroleum prices. And President John Dramani Mahama has charged the ECOWAS Commission to seriously take up the issue of youth unemployment in the sub-region and deal with it. But that's it for joining us today. For more news, do well to log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Kwabna Chenche Inibwati. Have a good afternoon.